Test. 1 minute to win it. Ah, j'ai pas de micro. Ready? Ready. Yes? Okay, let's go. So I used to speak fast, so I hope you are concentrated. Fasten your seatbelt. I have only 20 minutes to teach you everything I learned from going to 1 employee to 10 employees, and I hope it will be useful for your business. So when people look at Odoo, they always think, okay, it's a big company, it's different than my company, it's because they made a big product, and so on and so on. So I like to remind you the beginning. I like to remind that creating a company, starting from one, it takes a lot of time. The first year, I was alone. The second year, I was alone. The third year, we were 2. And the fourth year, we were 4. So when I see entrepreneur coming to me and saying, oh, it's only been 3 years and we are 5 people, we are struggling, I'm always laughing because we were only 4 people after 4 years. It takes time. To build great things, it takes time. So don't be dramatic if it takes more than you think. After, of course, we started growing. Then we went 6, and then 135, 200, and then we had a lot of difficulties. We had to let a few people go. It happens in the life of a company. And then we grow, and that's a very old slide. We are actually more than 700 nowadays. But still, that helps to remind yourself that it takes time, it's normal to grow. So how do we go from this complex phase, from 1 employee to 10? And let's go. It's okay to take time, that's what we used to do at Odoo, if you improve every year, if you capitalize on everything you do every year. So if the product improves, if your quality of service, if you build a user base, it's okay. You are actually building stuff, and building stuff takes time. I used to say at Odoo that it's a marathon, it's not a sprint. If you build for the long term, you have to, if you think for the long term, it's normal that you set up things that will pay off in 2 or 3 years. And that's what we did at Odoo. We always think in the long term rather than the short term. Sometimes to the point where doing bad service of a customer, no, in order to fix something in the product for the future version, which is a bit more long term, so that everyone can benefit from it. But at least by doing that kind of thing, the company grew year after year without being too much defocused. Okay, let's start with the difficulties of a small company that grows. First is the recruitment. The recruitment when you start is a nightmare. I can already tell you that you will fail your first recruitment. It's very hard. You see people, especially when you start, you see people that look very good and you say, oh, this guy is amazing. And then 2 months in the job and you're, oh, it didn't, sometimes it's the opposite. Sometimes you have someone that doesn't look very great, and then 2 months in the job is the best of the team. It's extremely complex to recruit people, especially when you start. So I used to say, think about it like the fact that you will fail. You will just recruit bad people, and it's okay. The only thing to do is to act quickly, and usually for me, I always acted 1 year too late. So I let them go usually 1 year too late. So if they were very bad, I noticed it after 6 months. But you know, an entrepreneur is an optimistic always. So because you're optimistic, you're always thinking, okay, things gonna improve. And then after 18 months, you can't work with him anymore, so you have to let him go. So it's okay, we do mistake, but we have to act more faster, especially in the beginning because it costs a lot. I have been near the bankrupt a few times, and that has been one of the reasons is because I supported people that did not support the company at the time. I should have acted and replaced much faster. And usually, when I did that, that was a new life. It was like a new life for the company when I replaced a few people, and we can start and grow again. So that's one of the things in the recruitment. Another thing I think when you start a company, do not recruit salespeople before you have 1 million of revenue. Okay, you can adapt to the business. Some companies 2 or 500,000, but the idea is the same. Is that salespeople, they need stability to be efficient. They need a good sales pitch, they need a product market fit, they need something. And if they don't have that, they will be frustrated, they will do a bad job, and you will be frustrated because they don't bring customer. And when you start, the best salesperson you have is you. You are passionate, and nothing beats passion in a job. So it's very efficient to start selling yourself at the beginning. It's also very good for the product market fit because you will have all the failure in your face when you start, and you will learn a lot from that. So what I say, I used to recommend to the small company who starts, until you have a company of 10 or 20 people, do not recruit salesperson. You will recruit salesperson once you are mature to have that kind of profile in the company. And of course, once you do that, they are very useful. So salespeople are good. It's just that you need the right timing and the right moment to do it. And when you do it, recruit 3 at once. Why? Because you will fail on the first 2. And especially when you start, and like me, you are not a salesperson, I'm a computer scientist. You cannot evaluate easily salespeople. I mean, it's a different type of people. So it's very difficult to be right at the beginning, to understand how they think, and to make just to set up a commission plan. You don't know what are the targets at the beginning. You put targets like you used to use for yourself, and of course, because you are passionate and you work 14 hours per day, your targets are completely irrelevant for a regular salesperson. So you recruit 3. What I used to do is I recruit 3, and still do that today when I open a new subsidiary in different countries. We recruit 3, we wait that they get on target, because that means that at the point we have, on average on target, we have good guys in the team, they have understand it, prove that the model works, and after that, and only after that, we scale the team. Product market fit, that's very complex too. It takes a lot of time to find the right product, according to the right price, the right business model, to create the value and so on. For Odoo, it's easy to check Odoo now because you know, everything is exploding. We have large customer coming, we are growing by 70%, we have 700 employees, we'll be 1,500 next year. When you look at that, it seems very easy. But it took us 10 years to get to that point. For 10 years, we were struggling, the business model was not good, the price was not good, but we were fighting in order to fix it. And one of the things in the product market fit that seems not as complex as it is the pricing. Pricing seems easy, you start with a price, everyone seems happy with the price, but it's extremely sensitive, the right price is extremely sensitive on the quality of the business. Usually, it depends on the business, but a lot of business, if you increase your price by 10%, it feels like nothing, you probably not have less customer, you double your margins. In a lot of businesses like that, it's rare to have a service company who have more than 10% margins. So when you think about it that way, it's very relevant to find the right pricing because it changes everything. 10%, how much customer do you lose if you do 10%? How much margin do you get more? So you have to test and evaluate and improve year after year the pricing. And I say that because it's easy to, one of the biggest failure we did at Odoo was the pricing. It was actually my failure. For the ones who follow us since a few years, 1 year we did the price where we multiplied, you know, it was $15 per user multiplied by the number of apps. Of course, it was completely stupid, but on the paper, we have over-engineered a little bit. It felt correct. And it costed a lot of time at Odoo because the partners were angry at us, and we probably lost 9 months in the development of the business because of that. But I don't regret it, because we fine-tuned, we changed the price, we tried different pricing every year, up to the point of reaching a price which I think is a very good price. I mean, it's fair for the customer, and it's okay for our margins. The business model is critical too, and I come from an open source business model, so I know what I mean. It's the same than the price. You can have very big leverage that usually you don't even imagine the kind of leverage you could have by changing a little bit the business model. I don't have a graph here, no? For those who follow my presentation this morning, you remember the graph where there is a cash that started at 8 million euros 4 years ago, went down to 2 million, we only had 2 months of cash. That was the result of the business model. And then we changed the business model, we did a pivot, and then we started growing again, and today we do 500,000 cash flow positive every month. So, and I like to emphasize on that because sometimes you think you get it, but there is always a way to do better. So don't say, okay, because my price feels okay, or because my business model starts to work, you may always think about improving that. Okay, that's something we do a lot at Odoo. I used to say that it's easier to be different rather than being better. If you look at our competitors, the traditional ERPs like SAP, Microsoft Dynamics, they are very good in branding. They are famous, people will buy them, it's okay, we know them. They are very good in verticalization, they manage 26 industries, but they are very expensive, so very bad in price, and very bad in usability. And they all are in this kind of same profile, whether it's SAP, Oracle, Microsoft Dynamics. Odoo is the exact opposite. We are very bad in branding. We don't have billions to put in branding. We don't have a vertical strategy. We think per app and not per industry. But on the other hand, we have a high quality product, very low price, so good for the pricing. And the success of Odoo is exactly that. It's just that we are different. It's not that we are better, it's just that we are different. We succeeded where the other failed, and we under-invested where the other over-invest. So it's very important to know where you want to over-invest compared to your competitor. For us, it's usability, improve the product, make it easier. And where we want to under-invest, for us, it's the marketing and the branding. And we hope we will compensate with the community. And it's good to be different because it's easy. For the things where you are not good, not better than the other, just copy. So you improve this thing and you invent where you are on your key strengths. But fundraising, that's one of the complexity when usually it's closer to 10 people than one. The first thing is that fundraising is not an objective, it's a means to an end. And I hear a lot of entrepreneurs looking to raise a fundraising because sometimes it's perceived as the success. I just get 2 million euros, I succeeded. It's actually the opposite. When you start raising funds, that's where the complexity comes. Why? Because for me, it just delays the problem. If you have a problem in your business model, or in your pricing, or in your margin, whatever, when you raise funds, you will start recruiting more, you will start investing more. So it's good you have money, you have to do that. But it just means that in 2 years, you still have to fix your problem, because if you did not fix your problem of margins or profitability, you will just have the same problem, but 3 times bigger, because you have 3 times more people. So it's just a mean. You raise money to do something. You raise money to do the pivot of the business model. For us, it was for pivoting from a service company to a software vendor and delegate the service to the partners. But it's not an objective, and it's certainly not the sign of the success. And it's, I often think it that way. It's the only thing when you grow, because the more you grow, the more money you have, the more things you can buy. It's the only thing you will never be able to buy back. It's the shares you sold. So it really has a cost. And usually the share that you sold at a low price, if you succeed and if you grow a lot, the price you will see after is huge. And if you do that, because for some phases of the company, it's good to raise funds, especially when you have a big pivot to do that kind of things. The key element to have in mind when you do that, it's the timing. But it's actually the key element for every negotiation. The timing is probably the biggest leverage you have in every negotiation. In terms of fundraising, it means try to align all the investors to do an offer at the same time. Because there is nothing worse to get an offer, here is some money for a valuation, which is 3 months before any other offer. Because then you're in a situation where you have to accept or lose everything. And if you so you always have to delay the fastest investor and speed up the slowest one to be sure you get all the offer at the same time, and then you can play the bidding process. It's the same in everything. I'm pretty sure that in every negotiation, sale contract, employee contract, timing is key. When you recruit, if you recruit faster than the other, it plays a very important role in your capacity to recruit the best person. When you sell, it's the same. If you are fast, when a customer requests a meeting, you are able to provide a meeting the next day, it changes the perception also. Survivors. Yeah, when we grow a company, you always have these moments where you are completely fucked up. Where you have no more money, you are like, oh, I have 2 months of cash, I have below zero, I've had probably 3 years where I couldn't pay the salary on time. So I paid it the 7th of the next month, or the 3rd of the next month. And I like to say that because it's normal. I mean, you cannot have a fast-growing company like we did without having difficulties. If it's too easy, it's because you don't try enough to grow fast. And I learned some things during this period, is that from the moment where you have no cash to the bankruptcy, you have 2 years. So it's less critical than what we think. You can always push the suppliers, pay them later, don't pay the social secretariat, I don't know how to say that in English. And you can always do a lot of things to push back on that. But it doesn't mean you have to relax yourself, it's critical. So you can push back the deadline, but you have to fix your issues. When you have problems of cash, it means you have issues, you have to fix them. Don't just try to work more hours or to do more, you have to really fix the issue. Could be the margin, could be the business model, could be the price, whatever, you have to change things, and a lot of things. But it's not that bad, because the most difficult times you have will become your path to the success. For those who know Odoo, it's an incredible company where we operate much faster than the competition. Like we do events like that, we do 240 events per year, and it's organized by 6 people. Any other company would need a team of 50 people to do the same. We have 70,000 leads coming in the company, we have only 1 lead manager. And we do that for everything. And the reason why we operate with such a level of efficiency, it's because of this hard time. Because we learn a lot when we are under constraints. When you have no cash, you are forced to reduce your cost to operate at a different level of efficiency. So it's not that bad to have these moments if you pass them. And the difference between a successful and an unsuccessful company is just that. The successful company, they survive when it gets tough. It's just the difference. So you have to keep fighting and then it works. And I have a last tip. Use Odoo. Sorry, but I cannot say a presentation without talking about Odoo, so I had to do something. But I'm serious. I mean, when you have the right tools, it changes everything. And today, because I manage everything, of course, with Odoo, I cannot imagine a company not managing the way we manage, with everything integrated, easy, to launch a subsidiary in just a few clicks, to have everything automated. It's like, can you imagine a carpenter without the right tools? No. But I cannot imagine a manager without the right tools. Today, within 2020, nearly, it's critical. And that's it for my presentation. Do we have time for the question, or should we go to the drawings? 3 questions. Yes? Yeah, we do have other tools on top of Odoo, like we have Gmail for the emails, because you don't have to be extreme. I mean, sometimes Excel is good, and if you try to put all your Access files in Odoo, you will just create a mess, and you will do a lot of custom development. So we apply our own methodology. We use Odoo close to the standard, so all the standard module, and if it's too complex, we have some documents, like the budget is still an Excel file, because there is no value to integrate the budget in Odoo, because it's just numbers and there is no action with the rest of the system, and it takes 10 minutes to just extract the data and put it in the budget. So we have a few documents, but basically everything, even the lunch, when you order a pizza for the lunchtime, it's managed by Odoo. So pretty much everything, but we still have some external tools. And last question, yeah? But I started Odoo when I was at the university, so I had no real previous experience. With TinyERP, OpenERP, it's just the continuity. For me, it's the same. It was no different venture. It's actually the same company. We just rebranded. But it's part of the mistake, you know, if you want the story about that. We were called Tiny ERP before. And then I was to the board of Danone, you know, the yogurt, and they told me, why should we pay €1 million for a tiny software? Then I came back and said, okay, we have to change the name. And so we renamed to Open ERP. And then we went to the board, I don't know which company, say, oh, open source is scary, it doesn't work. Another company, we say, oh, we don't want an ERP, we want a CRM. Oh, okay, I have to change the name again. And then we came back and said, okay, let's find a name that doesn't mean anything, so again, we can do whatever we want, and we switched to Odoo. Last question. Okay, I have another presentation at 4 p.m., I think, from going to 10 to 100 employees, where I will cover the topic. But basically, what I learned is that people follow you if you don't bullshit them. So when it's wrong, you have to be clear and transparent. You say, okay, we have a lot of problems. We fired 20% of the company because we have to survive, but here is the action plan. Here is what we will do. Here is how it's going to work, and we will make it. And if you are transparent, and if you have a good team that, and you're with a good company culture, they all follow. I think nobody left during this period at Odoo. At least not for this purpose. So I think, no, last question. The most complex part where, no, every year is different. Actually, the company is different every 2 years. So I cannot say that there is one phase that is better than the other. It's just that every phase has this challenge, its own challenge. Yeah, it's a bad answer, I know, but that's life. I think someone will do the wrap-up. You ready? You use the HDMI? Yeah.
Okay. Good afternoon. Having a good day so far? Yeah. So actually, my job is to make a summary of the talk we just had. Actually, I think it's necessary in this case because remember, the first thing Fabien told us is that he's speaking fast. Did you notice? So how many pieces of advice did he give us about moving from 1 to 10? Okay, quite a lot. So I think a little bit of a summary is in order. By the way, how many of you were present at the keynote speech of Fabien this morning? Yeah. Okay. So let me just start with this, a little bit of that. Summarizing this as well. So. It all started this morning, with, boy, that was something, It's like a cult. It's amazing. No, it's an amazing show. Great, okay? And we had a fantastic, exciting, inspiring talk about the business model of Odoo. And basically, it's all about, we understand that the revenues and the community and the cash and employees and partners, it's all growing exponentially, and it is just the beginning. So be ready for more fun. So what's the engine behind this? I understand the secret is a business model that connects community, partners, open source, constant innovation, software for people, enterprise, and it's all getting and creating a concept I've never heard. Today was the first time of hyper growth. And exactly as you said, Fabien, at the end of your speech, when I was listening to you, I thought, my goodness, how could any business not use Odoo? You were also showing the figures of unhappy clients, but basically there aren't any. So, whether this is pretty looking for unhappy clients, if any such thing exists. However, I have a little regret for this morning, for this session this afternoon, because, well, I think I got the answer, but when I was drawing, I didn't have it yet. So let's pretend I don't have the answer. Why was this about moving from 1 to 10, basically? Okay, it should have been moving from 1 to 1,100 or something, 100,000. And then you gave the speech about, the keys to moving from 1 to 10, okay? So what was able to grasp in the flow of ideas? Pearls of wisdom. Number 1, improve every year. Okay, so that's, good. Number 2, recruitment. Actually, you didn't talk much about recruitment, but mostly about firing people and making it quicker and sooner. And pearl of wisdom number 3 was pearl of, pricing. And I like your idea of just don't try it until you get it right. Okay, that's fine, interesting. And then, there was this last one about being different instead of trying to be better. So being different. Fabien, am I different enough to succeed? The guy says. Okay, so just to summarize, this was again, I thought, an inspiring day and an inspiring speech. Who knows the TED Talks? You know that, okay? Now, if you're asked to attend a TED Talk in Palo Alto, what do you answer? No, thanks, we do the Odoo thing, okay? And again, as I said this morning already, so for a few days, if there were kids in the room after a day like this, this is what they would say if you ask them the question, kids, what do you want to be when you grow up? Now, there's one guy I'm anxious about, I'm concerned about, and the guy is Tim Cook. You know Tim Cook, the guy of Apple computers, and he's used to do those famous keynotes. Now, I hope there's nobody from Apple in the room, because if that person comes back to Palo Alto, okay. Good afternoon, thank you.
So now we'll have a presentation from Nick, who is company as a service company in the IT industry.
All right. Well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Nicholas. I'm a software product expert, and today I wanted to talk to you about the fact that I want you to stop focusing on your product, but maybe a bit of context and context about me. So I own a software development firm called Belighted. We are in Louvain-la-Neuve here, not far from here, about 5 minutes. I actually studied with Fabien. Well, we studied together, and we are specialized in new software product launches. We work mostly with startups, but also with established companies that want to build new startups, new products. And by the way, who could you tell me in the audience who is kind of related? I mean, works in software products, like involved closely or not closely in new products? Okay, great, interesting. Because the fact is, since I founded the company 12 years ago, we've worked with about a bit more than 100 companies, and talking about a bit more than 10 million euros of product development. And over these past 12 years, we've seen a lot of products fail. So this is why I was asking, because I want you to be a bit in a confession mode, in a sense, if you identify yourself with some of these examples. I chose 5 real-life examples of customers that we've worked with. And the first one I wanted to share is one of our first customers. It was, if I remember, a kind of a marketplace, what we call a two-sided marketplace. You know, imagine like Airbnb. You have people providing a service and people consuming a service. And we spent a lot of time building this product and really trying to make a really nice interface, really put a lot of effort. Nice interface, nice processes behind, and so on. And then came the launch date. We launched the product, and then nobody came. No traffic at all. And I think it's part of the problem. It's the old, adage that's called "build it and they will come." So people believe that it's just enough to build a product, and then people will naturally be interested in it. And but obviously, it doesn't work like that. And if you think it's, maybe there are more marketing-oriented people in the room. And you think, yeah, well, it's obviously stupid, I would never make this mistake. But actually, if you follow some studies, like this Gartner study, actually saying that less than 100% of new, well, in this case, of new mobile apps will actually succeed. Problem is that there are too many competition, and yeah, it's not enough to just be there. So you have to invest in marketing as well. Does that ring a bell to some people? Maybe have you confession to make, like you did this kind of mistake, just putting all your money in the product? No one? I mean, as I said, it might seem strange, but it's something we still see a lot today, like especially in more engineering-focused companies. They really want to make this nice product, and actually, well, as I said, it's not enough. A second example I want to share is a more recent customer. We actually we built actually the first version for them, so we released it, and then they came to us with a very detailed plan of versions 2 to 7, I think, with all the features they wanted and everything. And of course, I think it's really good to have a vision, right? To imagine how you want your product to evolve over the next few years. But going into details makes no sense. And in software development, we have this concept called the cone of uncertainty, which you might know. It comes from agile development. And the point here is, the idea is that it's very difficult to predict at the beginning of a project with really a lot of detail how much it will cost. So as software engineers, it's a proof that we cannot do that. And I guess the reason is that, well, there's a lot of uncertainty, and you don't know how people are going to react to your product. You launch it, maybe they will like some things, they won't like some other things. And so in a way, it's I think it's almost a bit disrespectful to your customers if you think you are able to plan that, because it means you believe they won't have a say in that. So I think it's something that's really important. And yeah, so that's typically something you shouldn't do. And it comes a lot. I know it's easy. I'm a product guy myself. I love planning features, but I mean, that's not enough. Something else we've seen is, well, it's interesting as well. I remember this customer. I think it was it was a fintech product, right? Something in finance and a financial software. And we released it. We were almost about to release it, and the customer asked us, okay, well, you've built this nice, first version of the product. Maybe could you help us now decide how we should price it? how will we price it to our customers? And of course, we can give advice, right? We are passionate people. We have a lot of experience. We can also get the trends from from the best practices. But the honest truth is, we don't know. I mean, we're not their target customer. We're just advisors. I mean, they probably should have tried to do some market research before as their customers, compared with the competition and so on. And yeah, it's something that's really strange because basically it's making a business plan, right? So, but we see that often. And this one, I think, is my favorite because it happens so much. I think it's related to the fear of success or the fear of failure. Actually, it's the story of a customer that it was in a very specific industry, and a new regulation was coming up, and they wanted to capture that opportunity with a very interesting piece of software. And so we built it, and then the law passed, and time kept passing on, and 1 year later, the product was still not online. And because they were keeping, being focused on very specific details, like this page is not good enough, I don't like the way we phrase this feature should be put more, more highlighted and so on. The problem is, of course, the law had passed, the customers, the market had found other solutions, competitors and so on. So that's very sad because they kept spending money on the product, and that wasn't really useful. There's this quote that you might have seen before from Reid Hoffman, is the founder of LinkedIn, which I really like. It's, basically it's about saying it's better to put something out there and get the feedback rather than just trying to have the perfect thing, because again, the market knows better than you do, so you should not be embarrassed. It's okay to be embarrassed because people won't remember anyway, so you probably don't remember the first version of Facebook you've used, for example, so it's not that important. And the last example I've seen as well, it was actually about not a new product per se. It was actually an old piece of software that was successful, but they wanted to improve it and basically rebuild it because a new competitor, a very sexy competitor, was coming up, and they seemed to capture the market more and more. They had a new approach, lots of very interesting features and so on. So they came to us and they told us, okay, we want you to clone this thing. How much? And I think for me it's still about product, like being obsessed by the product side of the business. But here, I think it's even a bit weirder because it's not even your product, it's a competitor's product, so it's really strange. And obviously, the thing, even if we were able to copy-paste the product, which is actually very difficult, by the way, because you only see the tip of the iceberg, so it's very difficult to copy-paste an existing product. We don't know what's going on behind. Even if we were able to do that, well, obviously the competitor is still progressing, right? So we would just be playing catch-up to try to keep following the steps of that competitor, so always being late. And so we advise them that it would be better probably to try to find an edge to be more unique in a specific way where they could be better than that competitor. Thankfully, there are good ways to avoid that. There are good practices. Who knows here about the lean startup methodology, by the way? It's kind of famous. You probably have heard of that, in a way, a little bit. What I like about this methodology, it's almost a philosophy, actually. It's a set of good practices. And the first one, I guess, is really focusing on what you are trying to solve. And by that, I mean the problem itself, not your solution. Your customer is buying your product to solve a problem that he already has, right? He's already doing something about it. He has his own way of solving it, and hopefully your product is providing a better way to solve it. And there's this methodology that's called JTBD, which we use in all our new products, jobs to be done. And the idea is that the customer is hiring your product. He's hiring to do a job, right? And he used to, as I said, use a different way and to solve the problem that he has to fire. Sometimes literally, unfortunately. Sometimes software do replace people. That's sad to say, but that's part of the the automation things that's going on. But the job is still the same. The solution is different, right? Maybe you've seen this. I like this picture. It's obviously people waiting for their commute, waiting and. I guess the first one, I don't know, a century ago, or a bit more maybe now. And they're obviously reading newspaper. Nowadays, people are probably just on Facebook or Instagram or whatever. But it's essentially two different solutions to the same problem. That, I mean, the job is still the same, to pass time while waiting for waiting to go to your work. And so this is really interesting to really focus on this specific aspect. And if you're still, I mean, if you're trying to launch a new product and you actually still don't exactly know what you want to do, I guess you can think of your so-called unfair advantage. So you could, if there's something that you're particularly passionate about or you're knowledgeable about, then this might be something you will be better at doing than somebody else. To give an example, we launched our own, I mean, as an agency owner, I had this problem of trying to schedule my teams on different projects, right? It's called resource scheduling. And we couldn't find a good enough solution to our specific needs, so we decided to build it. But it was something very interesting. We had this problem, so I wanted to scratch my own itch, as they say, right? So we wanted to really solve that ourselves. And it gave us an edge, I guess, compared to other people solving the same problem. And also, when it came to selling, when we decided to sell it, it was also easier because I came to people, like to prospects. As a fellow agency owner, I tried to say, okay, I have this problem. You probably have the same problem. Do you? Yes, no. What do you think of my solution? So it gave us some kind of relationship that other salespeople could not have. And obviously, I'm not here to say work on your passion and so on. That's the best way to do. But I mean, if you're building products, it's hard. So if you're working on, I mean, if you're trying to build something and you are like half interested in it, then it probably won't work. So you really have to really be involved. Second advice is basically to do the things in the right order. And here as well I have an example that I liked. For once it's something that one of our customers did well. And it's about trying to build attraction before building the product itself. We had this customer, it was a marketplace for sharing homemade meals for your neighbor. It's called Menu Next Door, you may know it. Marketplace, right? People would sell their own meals. And they actually decided to build their community before building the app. So I think it was a Facebook group. They grew it to more than 50,000 people. And people are already using, so they got a lot of feedback, a lot of people it proved to them that there was a demand and so on. And so when the moment arrived, they decided to actually build the app. Well, the people were already there, and it actually also helped them get funding. I think they got more than 2 million funding just with this community before even building the app. So I think it was a really interesting way to proceed. And so yeah, I think it's if you want a different idea, if you're trying, for example, to make a fitness tracking app, you could make an Instagram account where you share tips, or you could make a mailing list and so on to try to build this community. Has anyone seen this before? Kind of the shape, recognize? It's, well, in this case, it's the lean canvas. It's a variant of the business model canvas that you might know. It's basically it's a one-page business plan that the lean methodology recommends you to do. And I won't go into details. That's not the topic. But what you will find very interesting is that there's this box, the solution box. It's actually what I call product, right? It's the solution. It's just one single box, right? So theoretically, you could do a lot of different businesses, different startups, different business models with exactly the same solution, or almost. Because you can, I mean, you could change the revenue streams. You could sell it differently. You could do partnerships, different channels, and especially use different customer segments or a different value proposition. If you look at very famous examples, Facebook and LinkedIn, I guess if you look at the mobile apps, I'm following very frequently how they evolved. And it's interesting because they merge more and more, right? If you look side by side, they both have news feeds. You can post, share articles, you can have comments, you can have likes, and so on. But they have very different purposes, right? Even though it's getting more and more blurry, I admit, but you still today wouldn't share baby pictures, I guess, on LinkedIn, right? So it's something that's I mean, in terms of the product itself, it's almost the same, but it's a different business. And the third advice I want to share is really focusing on feedback. Might seem obvious, but again, it's not something that people do very easily. And I want to insist even from the start. And when I mean from the start, again, I mean before building a solution. It's what it's called business problem feedback. So again, keeping this example of fitness tracking app, instead of imagining your fitness tracking app and you would go to gyms and ask people, would you use this app? What do you think? Is it good? Well, you would rather follow them, ask them, and how they are currently doing it. So maybe they are using a different app that you don't know, and so it's interesting for you, but maybe they're not even using an app. Maybe for whatever reason they are using pen and paper. They could, I mean, and then maybe there's a reason why apps are not convenient for using in gyms. I don't know, but that's the point, really focusing on the problem. And only then you can think about your solution that you can present to them. You can just describe it to them, like, again, like showing what do you think of this solution. You could do mock-ups. You might have seen that before, like basically not coding anything yet, but just showing how it will work. And it's, for example, what we do at Delighted is we do a 1-week design sprint. So it's a process, a very intense process where we get with the customer and do a 1-week workshop. We start from the idea and we end with what we call a clickable prototype. So no code, no coding, no programming involved yet. But we test it in front of real customers, and it's really useful because I think about 80% of the problems or the feedback is going to happen at this phase. They won't really care about the details of the inner workings of your product. It's mostly about the interface. This quote I like as well from Jeff Raskin is the guy who made the first. I mean, he was responsible for the first Macintosh project at Apple. I think that he invented the drag and drop and so on. And yeah, I mean that's the point. People are just they see the interface, that's what they're interested in. All right, so early on I shared, like some stupid mistakes of some customers that we've had, and you might have wondered, yeah, who are these stupid people, and who is the speaker that's working only with stupid people, right? But obviously, it's not just them. There are studies about this, and one of the most famous ones comes from Harvard. And well, yeah, they say that 95% is pretty impressive of new, or in this case, consumer products, they fail. So, I mean, there are reasons, and it's pretty obvious that it's a generalized problem. Some other study I really like is this one from CB Insight. It's a market research industry specialized in innovation and startups, and they identified based on a lot of failed startups what were the reasons actually. And I'm just sharing here the first 5 ones. But with the advice I shared, focusing on feedback, focusing on the problem, doing things in the right order, and so on. If you follow that, at least you will reduce the risk of at least the 2 first ones, which is essentially making something that no one wants and spending money on useless things. And so if our customers are making these mistakes and spending dozens or hundreds of thousands of euros or dollars, or even millions in the case of the Harvard cases, and it's a documented process, it still means it's a matter of choice, right? You can follow this advice. So I want to conclude by saying, I mean, startups and building products is very time intensive. It will take years of your life, maybe your health, maybe your relationship, maybe hair, as this guy. So yeah, please try to put the odds in your favor and try to avoid making these mistakes. Thank you. And by the way, if you are so intrigued or so captivated by what I said and you couldn't take notes, I have a list that you can download that's obviously free, where I go into more details about stuff you can do if you want to launch or relaunch your own product at this address, or you can take the QR code as well. Thank you. I don't know if we're doing questions or... Yes. What is, sorry, what is? Huh. Well, so the question was, what in our experience, what was our biggest launch? But different interpretations, I guess. We did some impressive launches for the French television. So it was an app that was to be used during a show, basically, like a so-called second app that you use during a famous show, and it was very impressive because they were expecting like hundreds of thousands of people, so because it's a famous program. So that was very impressive. But I guess what's very interesting is that it's usually not, with all I said, it's actually rarely about big, very noisy launches, or at least we mostly specialize in B2B, so this was a bit of an exception. Most of the products we would do are actually the most silent ones. We have this, in terms of money, in terms of size of project, our biggest customer is actually, they're making, I think they're about the size of Odoo, but in very specific sector. It's in IP, so in a very obscure legal stuff. But it doesn't sound very exciting, but they are really good at what they're doing, and we help them there. So it's in my opinion, it's the biggest success because they did a lot of things right, and they started. We've been working with them for 10 years now, so they've been starting with very basic product, and now it's a huge thing. So that's for me, it's more of a success because they really grew step by step. Well, so yeah, the question was, is the methodology applicable to, I guess, non-software businesses? Or, you mentioned manufacturing. So, we have, obviously my own experience is into software, but software in different industries, including some more like Industry 4.0 and stuff like that. So it's manufacturing, but it's still software. So I agree that this methodology is it's easier to improve a product and upload and update if it's something that's intangible like software. But theoretically, the lean methodology in itself, that it encompasses all kind of startups. It's just about startups, and the idea is to keep focusing on learning. So I'm not sure because I'm not in that industry, but the point is to focus on ways to minimize the cycles and learn as much as possible. So, that's the main, I guess, the main learnings from that. So maybe it will involve making different ways of gathering the feedback. But I agree that at some point, it's like for regulated industries, for example, sometimes it's difficult, like in biotech, for example, or you need very large process where clinical trials and so on. So I agree in that case it might be a bit different. But theoretically the point is, to try and test as quickly as possible with the least investment possible. Because the whole goal essentially is to not waste time and money, as I said, and years of your life. I'm really sincere about that because we see a lot of customers are losing a lot by just trying to build stuff that no one wants. So that's it will depend. I have unfortunately no specific experience in that. Yes, we still have time. 1 minute, okay. Well, you mean, so the question is, how do you select the feedback you get and which you consider useful? Yeah, it's so this is the methodology that there's a how to explain that there is a part that is part of your perceptions. You will have to take decisions sometimes, but when it comes to user interviews or customer interviews and asking things, you usually try to see trends, right? So you will what we do, for example, with user interviews is that the theory is that if you really want to do a great job, you need 20 user interviews, but 5 are already great. Like again, the Pareto effect, like 80% of the feedback is going to come from the 5 first ones. But from what you gather from the 5 first one, you will improve the interview. And if it's something is unclear or people look like they were really focusing on the same issues, then you try to orient the questions in the future interviews towards that. So it's a way to basically try to put your finger on something that's really specific. But otherwise, I agree that there's a part of subjectivity, I guess, that you have to decide at some point. That's something that's indeed cannot be resolved by a process, I guess. We good? Thank you very much.
founders of UBIS. In fact, we are a group. UBIS is really involved with startups, and Tanguy is the CEO. He will explain you later. On my side, I'm a founder of Havila Partners too. It's a merchant bank in London, but we're really active in Benelux too. On our side, we are doing more deals, over 5 million in mergers and acquisition and fundraising too. So today we just want to speak about business development and fundraising, mainly on Series A, so I mean for startups that after the seed, they intend to raise some money. So just begin by some hard figures. First point, you must know that since 90s and 2010, more than 35,000 startups that were founded, 81% of those no longer exist after some years. And on the rest of the startups, only 19 achieved by an IPO or acquisition. I mean, they acquire something or they be sold to someone. That's a Crunchbase study. Generally speaking, the more stage of financing that the companies know and go through, and the greater is the potential of do not know a failure. The Series A, it's maybe the most difficult round for every startup. You were in a very kindful stage with your family, friends that gave you some money, and the people, the business angels, when you do seed capital, they are really helpful with you. But now you change the world. No one loves you because they just want to challenge you from morning to night, and you all do nightmares every night after this challenge. So the good news is that now, years after all the rise of internet and so on, the investors, they know your business and they understand what you do. Maybe that's the bad news, in fact, because the investors, they know exactly what you do, what you intend to do, and they receive hundreds and hundreds and thousand files every day. So they are more able now than 20 years ago to challenge you. Just a small story. In 1998, we helped a company in France, in fact, and it was a very brilliant CEO and founder and in the internet. And we met the head of private equity of one of the major French banks. And we have some tools for online shopping at this time and things like that. And they told us, you know, internet is like a better Minitel. In the next 5 years, no one will speak about that. So that's for explaining that 20 years ago, it was quite difficult to be a startup and to explain to people what you want to do. Now it's more easy. But on the other hand, they know exactly in what kind of competitors you can have. Now, in 2020, only 11% of the company that's raising A rounds are already generating revenue. And now, just 8 years after, 67% of the startups after this distinction. In fact, the real difference between two startups is which one is able to generating revenues naturally. And the previous speakers, we have some points really in common with them. So what's your goal number one as a startupper? The main point for the seed round, you must be ready to the Series A as from the beginning. And you just have only 3 words in your mind that are really important. The first one is cash, the second one is cash, and the third one is cash. So welcome to capitalism. If you are not comfortable with that, you can stop the process of your dreams immediately. Everyone can understand your losses. No one will understand your cash flow projections if these ones are not enough strong. Remember that cash is king, and it's really important to be comfortable and giving the proof of every line of your cash flows. A lot of startups were focused on the tech side and want to be able to deliver the most perfect product of the world, sorry. So in that case, and that was the previous intervention, welcome to the cemetery. You don't care about that. The most important is that you have to be focused on your business. Someone were focused to win as quick as possible clients and giving the proof to the investors of their capacity to do turnover with the first basic offer. And of course, everyone understands that with some money, sure, you're a winner. So how can we manage this dirty word, cash? So let's see the different ways. First way is a hard one. It's easy to understand, tough to achieve, but it's a basic one. You have to do sales. I don't know if you do e-commerce, traditional direct marketing, whatever, if you have a product, if you intend to have some royalties, partnerships, but it's really, really, really the first way that you must use is having a turnover, having business. And then after that, you have another hard way, is obtaining subsidies and debit bank loans, credit line, whatever you want, if you intend to have a fundraise, IPO, crowdfunding. And that point, it's really another hard point for main reason is that you cannot do both of them alone. And I don't want, I'm not here for selling whatever. It's just because really we, and Fabien said that before, it's really time consuming because you are focused on your company, you want to sell, you want to have a beautiful product, you want to manage your people. If it's 2 or 3 people, maybe it's harder to manage 10 people than managing 500, in fact. But here you need help, and you need to have a real methodology and to know exactly what to do and what not to do. So extra cash flows you grow because time is money, and so you need to buy some. And that's the point where Tanguy will explain you at the level of a series here what a company and what a manager has to do.
So buy some time. Okay, of course, we like quite well motorbikes. We decided to put motorbikes on all our presentations, so if you like that, I hope to. A bit of a graph. It's just like a typical, if I can say, graph where you can see the resources on one end and sales on the other one. You got like this funding. Thanks to that, you have the possibility to increase, to invest actually within your resources, to hire people. It's a quite difficult and tough step, to be honest, because you got like some pressure. You have to invest quite a lot. You have to go fast. I mean, you have shareholders, and they want to have somehow the money back, and they want you to have a break-even point at some point. It's, as you can see, having funded on the right time is a possibility for you to boost a bit everything. What triggers venture capital? You have 2 main things, to be honest. It's one end, of course, you got the gut feelings, and on the other hand, you have the metrics. To be honest, the most important one is the metrics. That's something that you should not miss about. We're talking about Series A, so you're talking about a company that is already having traction, so better for you to already have some sales and revenue. Okay, we all talk about the hockey stick. Okay, fantastic, it's brilliant. I mean, it's not important that you got that very straight. If you have a pretty good increase, that's already great. And just in order to cut the myth, Google, Facebook, or Netflix were no exceptions when they were raising money. Maybe, Netflix is an outlier, to be honest, because the guy who was a founder in the 90s already sold a previous company, $700 million. So probably, it was not a problem for him to build up a new company. But for Google and Facebook, these guys were students, and they had to show some traction. And without traction, they didn't have the money. And that's something that we forget about quite too fast. Gut feelings, yeah, it really depends on many things. Usually they come, okay, I mean, I'm a bit exaggerating when you don't need them, but whenever actually you can fit within their own ecosystem, when they can feel an exit already. They like to deal with experienced entrepreneurs as well. I mean, it's easy to deal. You have to put them yourself actually in their shoes. You know, they have many companies they are sitting at, so they'd like, you know, things to be quite easy. That's something normal. Metric-wise, I mean, you know, figures. And to be honest, get it documented. And it's a bit, you know, if you have this CRM where you can document everything, that's great. Because, you know, whenever you got like questions, you can answer them back quite easily. And you have these track records. What scares away venture capital? To be honest, lots of things, a bit everything. You know, you have so many different venture capitalists, you have so many different investors, the profiles are completely different. These are verticals. Some, you know, like to invest in early stage companies, some others like to invest in Series A, Series B, Series C. It's very different. Some, you know, just specialized, for instance, in some industries or some countries. But usually, you know, they like track records. If they feel there is a weakness in the management team, it's kind of like an issue. It depends as well on the decisions you took throughout your journey. I mean, it's good to make mistakes, it's good to make errors, but some, you know, are unforgiven and probably would dump your company just to the ground. So you have to be very careful to that, but you have to risk. I mean, this is a startup. Success fast, fail fast, it's normal. Yeah, I don't like, you know, sometimes risky R&D and stuff like that. I mean, nearly everything. To be honest, it could be even, you know, the color of your shirt. I mean, if you are into fashion industry and you're just pitching to Kering, you know, this could be something happening. Raising venture capital is quite a long process, to be honest. It's sometimes too long. Sometimes it arrives when, you know, you don't need it anymore. It's a long process, which is an opportunity cost for you. Looking for capital, you know, divert you from what you should be doing, sales. That's something that you need to focus on. It does not work always, you know, just depends. It does not work always, it's quite technical and requires experience. Even, you know, experienced entrepreneurs go sometimes to specialists because they know that it's an hassle. Yeah, focus on sales. That's something that is quite sure. That's something on which you have an impact. A few standard steps to Series A. That's something that, you know, you want to go and let's say you want to go and fundraise. It's quite general and standard. It's something that, you know, you will have anyway. You'll have to get a pitch deck at first. You're gonna have to get a business and a financial plan. That's something quite standard, to be honest. Be careful about the financial plan and the business plan. That's something that is quite key. No one believes in big financial and business plan, but, you know, it's going to be the base of your discussions to later stages. So, you know, put the numbers right. Then you send your pitch deck to a few investors that you've qualified. You have to know that investors, as I previously mentioned, they're very specialized in some verticals. You have to know as well that even within VC firms, you have specialists in one specific vertical, in one specific industry. So try to identify them. Then pitch. Okay, it's quite easy. I mean, there are coaches for that. It's something that is quite key. You know how to start, how to stop, and when to stop as well. Send further information, all the ones that are required, and when, you know, they're interested, congratulations, welcome to the due diligence. And that's where you start negotiating. Due diligence is when, for instance, a VC is really interested about your company, but really wants to see what's behind. So, for instance, if you don't have any cadavre in the placard, So if from a legal point of view it's good, if you know the operations is great, if what you mentioned in your business plan is real, it takes time. It takes really quite a lot of time. And then, let's say, happy, they liked what they saw, they will propose you a deal, and you'll start to negotiate and to talk about the term sheets and sign the shareholder agreement. Then after, you get the money, and then after, you know, you still keep on working because it's an ongoing business and process. So that's the few standards you will have anyway in any kind of fundraising relationship. Just as a conclusion, and so like that we stop. It takes time, but it's worth it. You have to know when to go for this step from a fundraising point of view. Sales is something that you can, you know, definitely master, and that's definitely the first thing you should focus on. Yeah, that's it. So yeah, that was, and so thank you. Okay, a little word about ourselves. We are UBs. We support entrepreneurs through business development financing. We focused on tech. Our playing field is Europe and Africa. We support and advise entrepreneurs from a fundraising point of view, from 500K up to 2 million euros. We have our own club deal as well. Twice a year. We do have a bespoke business development acceleration program, which is completely separate. So for young startups having already some traction, we help them going more within this business development path, and we are independent. Voilà, that's it. Thank you. Yeah, that's fine. Okay. Oh, you want questions? Sorry. Yes, gentlemen. What do you mean? We work? The co-working? Sorry. To be honest, you know, it really depends. I mean, you know, there is always cycles, to be frank. There are some fashions as well, cycle within, you know, the VC world. For instance, you know, once it was VR, AR, everyone was crazy about that and everyone wanted to invest in that. At some other point, it was blockchain. Blockchain was hype and everyone, you know, were massively going to that. From a work point of view, you know, IPO is quite complex, to be honest. It's kind of like a burden, to be frank. And not everyone, not every companies want to go IPO, to be honest. It's lots of administration. It was kind of like an exit, to be honest, but it's one of the solutions, if I can say. So will it have an impact on fundraising? To be honest, it really depends on which kind of vertical sectors, industries. Maybe for co-working spaces, it will have an impact, but maybe it won't have like another impact on different types of business. So, voilà. Nobody else? Yes. For fundraising point of view? So roughly, we have a talk, first of all. We try to understand each other. Secondly, we try to see if we like the business. I mean, we don't accept everyone, to be honest, just because we want to have the best chances as well in order to get our entrepreneurs succeed. I mean, we want to have a great and fantastic track record. Then we go through the business plan, the pitch deck and everything. There is a ping pong, to be honest, up and go. can last from 2 weeks up to 2 months, depending on how mature these papers are. And then after we select a list of investors. Usually it's all about investment firms and everything. We propose the list. If the entrepreneur likes the list, we go forward, we contact them, and we go for opportunities for you to pitch and talk and discuss, and we help you out throughout up to the closing. So we help you negotiate as well your term sheets, the shareholder agreements, up to the monies and in the bank. So that's what we do. It's really like a very close relationship. It's not only about fundraise, to be honest. There's a reason why we developed this business development accelerator. It's just because we realized that we were providing so much added value for entrepreneurs. We have one, for instance, which is in the e-mobility. We started a few months ago together. To be honest, we like the management team, great management team, fantastic one, lots of possibility. They have the fantastic way to get the right key people around them. And to be honest, we went through the whole business plan. How do we say? Yeah, we challenged them. There was like an evolution into the business plan, to be honest. And we provided so many helps, for instance, from operation point of view. I mean, we just put like the first domino because we found that there was maybe some weakness in order to be strengthened. So we did that, and that's something that we do for any of our customers and clients. And we're happy to do that because it's part of the job. Otherwise, fundraising is nice, but voila, the other side is pretty good. And because we're seeing so many entrepreneurs and stuff like that, we can really effectively help on that end. Voilà. Yes, sir. Mm-hmm. Sure. But to be honest, it's actually more an opportunity. It's more positive for us, to be honest, because it's more risk and, more risk in the sense that it's more returns, to be honest. There are lots of money, actually, to be honest, right now and everywhere. But lots of people used to say that there's so much money. I have, it's just falling from everywhere. But I don't see so many great projects. And it's kind of like the usual sentence we see, and it's quite sad, to be honest. But no, actually, investors are ready, but it's not because they have the money that they will invest in anything or in any kind of business. If your business doesn't make any sense, if they don't see the business, the traction, the sales traction at some point. You could be dancing on your head. I mean, it won't happen. That's the reason why, going to VCs straight away, I mean, is not a good idea. I mean, you have some steps to respect, if I can say. At first, you have an idea, you have a PowerPoint. You need to go to subsidies. You need to go to public funding. That's the one who are ready to put the risk and to bear the risk for you. And then after, you can have 3F, of course, and business angels and things like that. They are the right people at the right place for this kind of things. But after, when you want to go for VCs, you need to have metrics, guys. You need to have sales. You need to have business revenues. You need to show that there is some traction in some kind. You need to show that you can make cash and that you can have the possibility to grow the company. So there is money. Yes, there is. And there are opportunities to get funded, that's for sure. Voilà. Nobody else? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. It's okay. Thank you.
je vais faire ici. I forget that there was a microphone, so I don't need that. So the topic of today is everything I learned from growing from 11 to 100 employees. And I used to speak fast, so try to stay with me. So that's just to prove I'm legitimate on the topic. So that's the growth of Odoo. We grew from 1 to 700 people in a few years, while being profitable, and we do 70 million euro now. And we'll be 900 before the end of the year, and probably 1,500 employees next year. Okay, but let's stop talking about Odoo. Everything I learned to grow from 1 to 100, first is how to scale a sales team. The sales team is very important. At some point, when you start to be 50 people, the growth is driven a lot by the salespeople. So how to scale a sales team? The technique I apply in all our subsidiaries is the following. Every time we create a new company in a new country, we recruit 3 salespeople at once. Why 3? Because we know 1 or 2 will be bad. And if you recruit only 1 or 2, you might notice after 1 year that this doesn't work. You never know if it's the fault of the salesperson or if it's the fault of your company or the market or the product. Once you have 3, you have a chance to have a good one, which could be the reference, and you can start building on that. And then, why 3? Because sometimes we do 3 or 4, but you get the point. And once you succeed to have 2 or 3 people on target, then you can build up on this team, and you can easily recruit 10, and the 3 will leverage the 10 others. So it's very easy to do. If you have only 1 or 2 persons, it's very complex, because if your best sales guys leave, you have nothing, and you have to start again. And when you open a new subsidiary or new sales department, it's extremely difficult to have the core of great people that will make the other people become great. So that's what we do. We usually start small. And why don't we start with 20 salespeople? Because it's extremely difficult to have the right mindset, the right product fit, to have everything works together. And if you miss, because the salesperson, they need something mature. All the processes are clean, the speech have to be clean, the product market fit should be good. And if it's not mature, you will just put 20 people that will all fail, they will be frustrated, you will be frustrated, and it's just not gonna work. And sometimes it takes 1 year or 2 years or 3 years to make it work, to have these 2 or 3 sales people on target, but it's worth doing it because it's not because you have 20 that it will work better than if you have 3. And then once you have salespeople, once you want to start growing after 50%, how do you identify the good VPs of sales? And it's extremely difficult because these guys are very good at selling themselves. So, and if you do a mistake about that, it could be very complex about they can kill the culture of the company or the thing like that. And I noticed over the years one trend in the best VP of sales is that they have a tendency to make the team become better. So they continuously train and coach and do pipeline reviews with the team. And so when I recruit for VP of sales, that's what I look at. See, I don't have to, but if I would have to recruit for a VP of sales, I think one of my questions would be, show me your sales tools of your past job. Show me your training material for your team. Show me how you do a pipeline review. That's very easy, and I think it's one of the key things to look at when you recruit a VP of sales. That's something I used to do in the beginning. I do it less now because we can afford to not do it now, so it's not something perfect. But in the beginning, you are always running to build a product. The product is not perfect, so you have to move forward. And what we always did is to say, the future customers are 10 times more valuable than the current ones. Why? Because we will have 10 times more customers in the future than what we have today. So sometimes, if we had difficulties on some project, let's say one of the app of Odoo was not perfect, and we had to improve it, instead of focusing on helping these 5 customers and developing all the specific features they were asking for, we just did a step back and say, okay, they will wait 9 months, we'll invest in the product, make it better for the next version, and then we'll upgrade them. It's not good in terms of customer service. I don't recommend it to everyone, but as we did that years after years, it helped grow the product much faster. So it's good in some phases, and usually the early phase. In the early phase, you have to capitalize on something, could be a product, could be a service, and sometimes not putting the customer first is useful. Why? Because by doing that, you actually satisfy the future customer, and they are 10 times more or 10 times more valuable if you grow the kind of customer you serve. Opening subsidiaries. It's extremely difficult. You launch someone in a country, and then You pray that it works. What I used to do is to, you know, when we wanted to open in the United States, there are a lot of states in the United States, and a lot of companies think about that in terms of strategy. Where should we go? Should we go in New York, East Coast, or West Coast? Should we go there or there or there? We do the complete opposite. We work by an opportunistic approach. Can we find the right director? And if we find the right director, we will recruit him where he is, and that will be the company. So we did that, and we used to do that. So what I think is that the people are more important than the strategy in a lot of things. So when we need to open a new country, usually we select the person first, and if he has a strong attachment to somewhere because he cannot relocate, we can open the company there. That's what we did in the US. So now we are in San Francisco. It's probably the worst location you can go in the US because it's super expensive. There are no retention on the people. But still, I'm very happy. It's working very well because we had the right persons. And that matters more than the strategy of the location. If you want to open the subsidiary, what we do, we always, and it's not only for the subsidiaries we launch, the new company we launch, it's also for the new departments or the new manager. We always recruit internally. I've tried to recruit experienced people who didn't come from Odoo, and I failed, I would say, 60 or 70% of the time. It's extremely complex because someone could have been very good in a company, an experienced CEO or VP of sales. It doesn't mean that he will be good at your company. Every context is different, every culture is different, and it's extremely difficult for someone experienced to switch his mind. I mean, they are experienced, they did the same thing for 10 years. It's extremely difficult to do it differently, especially at Odoo. We are a company very different from us. So we prefer to recruit someone where we are sure he's good. He's a very great guy, the best of his team. He's probably not a director, he probably doesn't have the experience, but we are sure he's good, we are sure he's passionate about the company, and we are sure he will work hard to make it happen. And maybe it's going to take 3 years instead of 2, but it's much safer. And I say that unless you have too much money, because also when you recruit experienced CEOs or VP, the first thing they will do is to recruit a secretary, and then very experienced salespeople too, and you explode your cost. That's one of the reasons why we had an office at Wall Street in New York. And so usually a young and overachieving existing employee is a safer choice. Of course, if you do that, you have to let him learn. So you have to give him the time to succeed. So sometimes I see that like you plant a seed, you send people somewhere, you plant a seed, you wait a few years because he has to learn, he has to discover the market, adapt. But it's safe. If it's someone you trust, someone who is good, you're sure it will happen. You don't know when, but you're sure he will succeed. Which is not the case when you recruit external people. And management from the distance never works. I've tried, it's extremely complex. So when you have a department or a company in another country, just let them do what they want, because you cannot do anything. Because you think you can have an impact, but it's usually worse than good. So you have to trust them and let them do, even if they do mistakes. I don't know if Mantavia is there, the director of our Indian company. No? So we have a story about him. I would have preferred that he was there, but we have a company in India that I opened a long time ago, probably 10 years now. And we had we went to, like any company, we went to great phase and very complex phase where a lot of people were leaving or things were not happening. People were complaining, and we did not understand why, because we were here, they were there. And I always did one thing. Even though sometimes people criticize this director or others, I always did one thing, is just to trust him. I say, okay, you do whatever, I always trust you, I'll trust you. And I learned a few years ago, after some employees coming to me and saying, you know why the company is still alive? Because you trusted the director. And it's true, he's still with us 11 years after, and he make all this phase and passed. And I've seen full R&D department in India disappearing from one day to another. A company coming and say, okay, I give you 20% extra salary, you took everyone and you go to another company. And here, because we had someone who did a good job and we could trust, everything worked. The role of the CEO. The more you grow, the more CEO should become Chief Explanatory Officer. So at the beginning, when you are a small company, you are like a dictator. You take all the decision and you create the task and you say you should do this and this and that. And it's good. I mean, the dictatorship is very good if the dictator is a great guy. Otherwise, it's a nightmare. But the more you grow, the less, when you are small, it's easy because you know everything about the company. You know the product, you design yourself, you know the customer, you are passionate, so it's efficient for you to take the decision. But when you start growing, the people who have the more information to take the right decision are the people in the bottom. So the more you grow, the more innovation decision should come from the bottom. And in order to make it happen, they still need a guideline. That's why it's more important to provide guidelines, a direction or a culture, I would say, and explaining to everyone rather than deciding, because they will decide better than you. So there is a switch happening around 50 and 100, 150 employees, it depends, where the company moved from a good manager is someone who takes good managerial decision, top down, and after 100 people, they cannot do good managerial decision because you cannot know every single details of everything which is happening in the company. And then the culture matters more than everything else. And then the role of the CEO is to promote this culture, give the guidance, and so it's a lot of communication and a lot of explanation. And at some point, it becomes more important to communicate efficiently rather than taking the right decision. Because the right decision will come from the people that you guided. Maybe I shouldn't say that here, but your company needs you more than customer, project, conferences, or social club. In other words, you should not come to that kind of conference. But here it's different because you learn a lot about Odoo, so it's different from a traditional conference. But that's one thing I never did, is to go to the social club, to the dinner with other CEO and so on. It's a waste of time. There is nothing more important than your company. You should always focus on that. And the rest, I don't think I mean, if you want to learn something, you just go online and you read a blog. But don't spend 2 hours in a day or in a dinner. So part of the success is to, of course, the focus. Everyone says that. It's very important to be focused. And one thing I learned in the focus is if you say to the people, your focus or your priority is that, it never works. Why? Because if you are a good company, everyone is overloaded. Everyone has a lot of work. There are a lot of things to do. And if you tell them the priority is to that, the only thing you do is just to add existing tasks on top of the full pipe they already have. So they will try to do a little bit, but that's it. It doesn't work. You don't make the company move or turn by that kind of approach. But if you do the opposite and you say you should not do that, then you reduce their burden of tasks and they can focus on what matters for the company. And for this, I have an example. You know, we were in OpenERP version 5. We were a rich client, so you had to install it everywhere, and then we moved to a web client in the browser that you can use online. There is pretty much no software that succeeded to move from a rich to a web client. I mean, all the players in the web today are players who started from scratch in the web, most of them. So only a very few companies succeeded to do the move from a rich client experience, completely different than a cloud solution. And we did it. And we did it in only 1 year. It was version 6.1. And I'm pretty sure that the reason why we did it, and we did it so successfully and so fast, and because we did one thing. We said to all the developers, we don't want new features. And then we said, the only thing you can do is to improve the existing feature, focus on the usability. And it was a very strong message, because before that, we were developing all the features that everyone were asking. A customer asked that, it feels good to do what the customer asked, so we were doing that. So he was asking this, we were doing this. And at some point we said, no new feature, everyone was blocked, I cannot do anymore, and we were blocking every new feature. And that forced them to change their mindset and refocus on something else, the usability, so improving the existing features. So that's been a very strong message, and you can apply that to everything. If you want to refocus a team, just say no to half of the things they are doing now, and they will have the time to refocus and do what you think is more important. That's something I learned also in 2013, is that when you start growing, especially for me, I was young, so I have an experienced manager with me who were more experienced than me, maybe 20 years of experience and that kind of things. One of the mistakes I did is to think that because they are experienced manager, I can let them do their job. But what I learned is that even the experienced managers, they are employees too. Even them, they want to evolve. Even them, they need guidance. They need training and things like that. And it's not only for the top manager. It's a mistake that a lot of new managers do is when you have a team and you have someone very good in the team, usually you don't spend time on it. You give him a lot of tasks, but you don't spend time to develop it because you think it works, and you spend your time where it doesn't work with the other guys. But it's an issue because even the very good guys, they want to evolve. So you still have, maybe they need less of your time, but you still need to spend time in training them, guiding them, and so on. When things get very bad, you know this graph I've shown it this video. Is it a graph or a video? That was, well, I don't have it. But every company, we went from 8 million to 2 million of euro in the cash after fundraising in less than 18 months. And we had two months of cash available. And I've had 4 times situation where I was close to the bankrupt at least for 1 year. So, and I think it's normal. I mean, you cannot create a fast-growing company without doing mistakes. It's very hard to do a fast-growing company, so it's very constraining on the cash, so there is always difficulties. When it happens, what should you do when things get very hard? The first thing to do is to not dismiss employees in waves. That's the worst thing you can do. You know, all the entrepreneurs, we are optimistic. So when things get hard, we say, okay, we'll fire 3 people, we'll reduce a little bit the cost, and then it's going to be better, and we will survive. And then 2 months later, nothing improves, and you still have to fire 2-3 people more. So you get 3 months later, you have to reduce 5 people. Because you do the minimum because you don't want to do that. And you wait 2 months later, nothing changed, you still have to fire 5 people. That's the worst thing you can do. When things get very bad or wrong or difficult, the thing you should do is to cut hard, but cut once. It's very hard, but you reduce more than you think because it's going to be very complex to fix the situation. And when you do that, don't bullshit your employees. Don't tell them, don't worry, it's going to work, blah, 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 blah. They are not stupid. If you are scared, they will feel it and they will be scared too. So when you do that, what you should do is to communicate clearly and transparently. You should say, okay, here is the cash, here is the money, here is where we are. We had to reduce by 20% of workforce to survive and give them a plan on how it will work in the future. And we will do that, and you should do this, and it will work because of that. So if you have a clear plan, you can explain them, and they will understand. I mean, our employees are very smart, so treat them like they are smart people. And the good news is, when you have no more cash in the bank, from no more cash to the bankruptcy, you have 2 years. You can always push back the invoice of the vendors, don't pay the secrétaire social, and that kind of thing. But we have more time than what we expect. It doesn't mean that we have to be lazy about that. We really have to work hard to fix the issues. And usually fixing the issues is not working hard, it's working differently, or changing the price, or changing the business model, or something like that. But you have to really fix these issues. Fundraising. I think I already discussed about that, huh? Yeah, like any negotiation, the timing is the most important thing in anything, and when you grow fast, you sometimes need funds. So the thing that matters more is to align all the offers so that it's easier in the negotiation. The worst you can do is to have people very interested, others that are late in the process, and then it gets very complex to do the bidding process. That's only for Belgium, so we'll skip. And that's a mistake I did. Sometimes you need to act like a shareholder and not like a manager. So I was a small entrepreneur, and then I grew, and then I raised funds, and then at some point in the process, we were 100 employees. I had new investor coming. I was the only shareholder at the point, and the new investor asked for a board. So we had a board meeting. And it took me time to understand, for the next 3 years, I acted like a manager. So I went to the board presenting my results, and the board was criticizing me. They did not understand very well the business, but they were criticizing me. And it took me a lot of time to understand that not only I was the CEO of Odoo, that's what I did since the beginning, but I was also the main shareholders. And things get much easier for me when I understood that, so I could in Belgium, the main shareholder can fire the board member. So once I understood that, it changed my life drastically. I also learned that you can crack everything. You know, I'm the developer. Developers, they like security holes, or I was developing virus cracking software when I was young. And when I had a very complex contract with, it was for the shareholder agreement, very difficult to negotiate. I thought it was much easier to put loopholes in the contract rather than negotiation in the clause. So rather than say, you need that, I want this, you need that, it's very complex to negotiate, but it's very easy to put a loophole, an exploit in a contract if you think well, if you think smarter than the other. And sometimes instead of negotiating the hard things, I put a loopholes. If you are in that kind of negotiation with shareholder agreement, come to see me and I can explain you what to do. Because you need a mind of a hacker to do that. One of the biggest mistake I did, so I read a lot of books. I read probably 3 books per month, a bit less than before, but I still read. Mostly about management and so on. And probably the best one I read was the law, the code, the laws of the company, code de société. And for me, it has been a huge discovery. And I should have done it before, because at some point, 5 years ago, we had some cash difficulties, and I found a way to bring more money in the company. But the board member, the investors, the past investor, they refused the money and said, no, we block. You cannot put more money in the company. But here is an offer, and it was a stupid valuation, less than a few years before, and we had multiplied the turnover by 10 in between. And it was an offer to take the control of the company. So we were fighting for 1 year. The company was nearly bankrupt. Because of that. And my biggest mistake was that I didn't read the law. I had lawyers, they had lawyers, we were asking the lawyers, but nobody told me that in the law in Belgium, the majority, the owner of the company can fire the board. And I should have done that and start again, put the money in, and I lost 9 months in the development of the company because of that. After that, I read it, I discovered a lot of things. So if you want to put loopholes in the contract, it starts by reading the law. About the people, recruitment is key, you know that. What's important in the recruitment is to evaluate based on competencies and not in experience. So resumes are not important. Someone can be very good in a company, he might not be good, but if someone is smart, he will be smart in your company too. So for that, we do real tests, IQ tests, or we ask a developer to develop or a salesperson to do a demonstration of the product. That's very easy to check who is smart and learn fast. That's one of the mistakes I did. I underestimated onboarding of new employees. Especially when you grow, when you start growing fast from 50 to 200 people, you save a lot of time if you train your employees very efficiently at the beginning. I've seen that when I was working in San Francisco, we had a ramp up of a new salesperson in 6 months. So when we recruited them, they started to reach their target after 6 months. And then we put a real onboarding plan with training on the product, training on how to do demos and things like that. And we decreased the onboarding of 3 months. But you know, having salespeople efficient in 3 months rather than 6 months, it changes everything. It just means that you can recruit 20 and they will start selling and they will be profitable. You don't have to invest the money before. So it changed a lot, and you should invest in onboarding of new employees if you start growing fast. And yeah, that's one of the things we did, which is cool. You can check on odoo.com/jobs. I would recommend that you do it today or tomorrow if you are not from Belgium, because the button is only visible from Belgium. But we manage the employee with a salary package, which is employee cost. Before that, we were managing the salaries of every employee in gross, but every manager were doing some advantage. You will get a big car, you will have a small car, we'll give you more holidays. It was a nightmare to manage. Now we manage all employees with one number, which is the employee cost, and the employee decides how he uses this cost to get a car or get. Oh, maybe I should show you. It's faster than explaining. So and we publish our salary. That's cool too. It's like, you know, the e-commerce 15 years or 10 years ago, nobody wanted to publish his price on his e-commerce because everyone was saying, if I publish my price, the competitor will be cheaper and I will lose all my customer. And so you had these products on the e-commerce website with a lot of buttons, contact us to get the price. It was very boring. And then some people like Amazon published the price and everyone started to buy, and they get a very first mover advantage. I think it's the same in the salary. Everyone wants to know the salary that you get in the company before applying, but nobody communicates on that, and it's extremely difficult to compare. So we did that. We publish our average salary in Belgium. You can click on the button there. And now we became the reference for developers. You can say, okay, I have 3 years experience as a Python and JavaScript developer, and you can configure your salary. And it's very easy. We manage it as a global company cost. So the global company cost here is 67,000. It's here. And the way he uses his package is flexible, and it's done by the employee. So he could say, okay, I want a car. This car, if I have a small or big car, I will have more or less gross salary. I want some days of extra time off, let's say 5 days. I want hospital insurance, representation fee, intellectual property. I want a fuel card of 150 euro. And then everything is computed. And before that, I can tell you we had a lot of discussion. Some people wanted a big car, a small car. They wanted winter tires in their car. Some people wanted an insurance group. And then you had all this back and forth with the HR. What kind of offer can you make me if I get an insurance group? What kind of offer can you give me if I don't get an insurance group? It was a nightmare to manage. And the employee had the feeling that their salary were not good. Because you always have someone that has a bigger car, or bigger insurance group, or a bigger whatever. And since we did that, all the problems disappear. Now everything is clear, transparent, I see, they can manage themselves what they want. And we have had all the friends of these employees that have seen that online and say, wow, we have a good salary at Odoo. And so we have no more discussion at all since we started to do that. Last tip, as usual, use Odoo. I'm good with the time? Is there any question? Yeah, all the presentation of these 3 days, the 180 conference are recorded on YouTube, and we also publish the slides. Yes? Yeah, it's a module of Odoo. If you use Odoo, you can use this module and start managing your salary like that. We don't have the rules of every country, so we really did the ones of Belgium, but you can configure the rules and you use the salary package and do that. What are the criteria when we hire people? It depends on but it's always, so when we recruit people, the only thing we look at is, I would say nearly the only thing we like is competencies. So if we recruit a developer, we don't care if he's social or not. If he's not social, he will be in this room with the other non-social guy. We don't care if he doesn't speak French. We don't care if he, you know, most of the companies, they have criteria, like I want multiple language, I need someone who is a team leader, I need someone who is social, I need someone who can develop in Python, in JavaScript. And the problem, when you start doing that, and when you start rating everything and looking at failure, like he doesn't speak French, or he's not very, he doesn't have leadership, by looking someone that are good at everything, you will get people that are average on everything. Because the extremely good guys, they are extremely good in something, maybe the best developer you can get, but they are usually very bad in other things. And so don't look for the default, look for some characteristic that they can bring to the company. For us, for instance, for a developer, it's mostly we are looking for good developers. The rest is less important for us, so what we do is we do a development test. And we look at how they develop a software and if it's good or not. And it's very quick, huh? Very easy to check. We don't look at the resume, we don't look at other things. After, at the end, we look at the resume just to check, for instance, that the distance from home to work, or does he need a car, that kind of, does he have a work permit? But usually we do that at the end. Yes? A lot. That's a different topic, but I think developer is the new MBA. I need the development skills like being Cartesian and thinking in a specific way is very good for a lot of things, but including managing a company. Look at the top 10 most valuable companies in the world. You have companies like Exxon, the oil and so on. But amongst the top 10 largest companies in the world, 6 have been developed by a developer, have been built by a developer. Amazon, Tencent, Alibaba, Apple, Microsoft, Facebook. So 6 among the top 10 biggest companies in the world, and the other one are dinosaurs. It's ExxonMobil, and so 6 have been developed by developers. So I think being a developer is very, very good skill to create companies. So that's one of the reasons why I think it's the future of the MBA. Any last question? Okay, thank you.
So, oops. Okay, hello again. So I'm going to be talking about the 5 steps of strategic thinking. Okay, now that's not an easy job after Fabien just told that people are more important than strategy. So why the hell am I talking about then? It's, you know, you were in the room when Fabien was there? Yes, probably. So you heard him telling that. It's interesting, but in a way you could say that putting a lot of importance on people is precisely a strategic choice. Or you could also say that hiring people who have a flair for strategy is a smart choice as well. So you could, okay? Why do we, what's the point of talking about strategic thinking? Well, it matters for business success, to put it simply. Earlier in the afternoon, we had presentations about showing the rate of failure of new ventures, the rate of failure of new products launches, or product launches, of new I think 99.9% of apps just a failure, and many of them because of the reason that they don't respond to any need in the market. So you could say that it's a major strategic failure in that case. So having the right strategic approach is important for business success. It is also important for engagement, for employee engagement. If you are running a large organization, you might find that a main reason for discomfort, for disengagement, for lack of motivation among employees is the feeling that there is no direction, they do not understand where the company is going, there is no clarity about strategy, about directions. And it's a major task of leadership to give a clear sense of strategy to the entire organization if you want to have your people motivated and engaged. And third, it matters to have an effective organization. There was a client of mine and they were struggling because the people in charge of hiring people had no idea what type of people they should be hiring, because it was a consulting company and every partner was basically developing their own business and had certain needs for a certain type of profiles. And there was no coherent vision as to what type of people do we need to hire. And therefore, the hiring process was completely inconsistent and incoherent because there was a lack of structure. So the organization, the day-to-day organization was not fluid because of that. So for all those reasons, it makes sense to have a strategy. But we need to have a strategy, we need to know how to think about a strategy. So we need to have a clear, when we say we need a strategy, what actually do we mean? So therefore, we need to have a definition of what strategy means, okay? Because, you know, when you ask people about strategy, I mean, and if you listen to what they say, it's a mix of everything. They talk about their business plan, about their vision, about the strategy, about their goals, it's like a soup, really. So it's not an organized, so what we need is an organized way of thinking to make sure we talk about the same thing. You know, you may have organizations, companies talking about strategy for weeks or months, but nobody is basically talking about the same thing. So what are we exactly talking about when we talk about strategy? So therefore, we need a strategy model that is simple, okay? That is scalable and powerful. Simple means that it's not like, doesn't take like, anyone can have access to it. It's a simple to understand, simple to learn, simple to remember. Scalable means that strategy is not just something for some strategic department in the company. It is something that everyone in the organization should be able to do. The same strategy model should apply to the entire company, but also to a department, to a function, to a team, or to a specific project. It becomes a way of thinking that can apply basically to everything. You could be the head of legal, the head of HR, the head of operations, a project manager, a team leader, whatever. In all cases, it makes sense to have a strategy for your scope of work. And the model I'm going to talk about works in all those cases. This is why it's scalable. And it is also powerful in the sense that it's just so simple, it asks so relevant questions that it makes a tremendous difference when you use it. And I've seen companies sort of navigating in a flux of unspecified strategies and suddenly using this model and everything becomes clear and people get motivated and it works. So, ready for the show, let's go. So basically the key point is to keep in mind that strategy is a cascade of hard choices. So basically it's your ability to say no to certain things that will define your strategy. So to what clients, to what business opportunities are you saying no? And that would, the answer to that would show the level to which you have a strategy. So it's a question of choices, and there may be hard choices because sometimes people may not be happy with it, okay? You have some companies who try to make everyone happy in the company, so they try to develop in a way that makes sort of everyone happy, but there is no strategic consistency. So maybe having a strategy may be tough, may be bloody, may be complicated for that. So choices and hard choices. There are 5 choices, 5 questions. The first one is, what is your winning aspiration? What is your winning aspiration? So 2 words, aspiration, then winning. Aspiration means basically, it's a key question. What is the ultimate goal? What are we trying to achieve? Why are we doing what we do? So what is the main thing you want to achieve? Now, you can push this quite far. It may become quite of an existential question, okay? Why are we doing this? What is the ultimate thing we want to achieve? And the winning part of the definition, the question here is that it's a call for ambition. So it shouldn't be, oh, we just do something for the sake of doing it. There should be an element of excellence in it, or being at the top of your game, okay? So what is your winning aspiration? Again, you'll find every day in organizations people who would say, oh no, we never think about this. We don't think about what's our winning aspiration. What is it that we want to do with this organization? We don't think about this. We are so busy. We are so busy, okay? So taking some time off to have that thinking, and to systematically ask that question whenever you launch a new venture, what is the winning aspiration that we have? If you think about winning aspiration, there are actually 2 dimensions. There's a dimension of ambition, and the ambition is what you want to become as a person, as a team, as an organization. We want to be the leader. We want to be the number one. We want to grow. We want, okay? So it's, I would say, ego-centered ambition and aspiration, which is perfectly okay, okay? But then there's another one, another dimension, which is purpose, which is what do you bring to others? What do you bring to your customers? What do you bring to, and you see many companies, and that part is quite interesting and important, okay? Especially to attract and retain young people. Many companies have an ambition. We want to be number one in our market. Okay, but what's your purpose? How to use this? How, in what sense are you making the world a better place, and for whom? So what is your purpose? So you have companies with a strong ambition, but no purpose. Okay? You may have companies with you may have companies with a purpose but no ambition. You might have companies with no ambition and no purpose. Forget about them. Okay? So the idea is to become a company with a strong ambition and a strong purpose. And that makes it quite compelling for people, for clients, for customers, and for everyone, basically. Now, very important. In the midst of the summer this year, in August, on the 19th of August, there was a statement by the Business Roundtable. The Business Roundtable is the US-based main organization of CEOs and companies. And they have made a very important statement redefining the purpose of a corporation. It used to be the whole, remember this, the corporation was all about creating value for shareholders. That was the purpose of the organization, creating value for, making profit for shareholders. Now, these guys, 181 CEOs of very large companies, define the purpose of a company as the purpose of benefiting all stakeholders, employees, customers, suppliers, community shareholders. You can go to the website of the Business Roundtable, very easy to find. Look at the recent policy statement, you'll find this. This is a major issue, a major difference, okay? So defining the purpose and the ambition of your company solely in terms of focusing on one of these groups is not really going with the flow of what's happening today. So when you think about your winning aspiration, about the ambition, about the purpose of your company, make sure you can look at it and it is convincing from the viewpoint of the investor, from the viewpoint of the employees, of the customers, of the suppliers, of everyone that is involved in it somehow. And that will make a winning aspiration that is hard to resist. One more thing about winning aspirations. Fabien today said something very interesting. He said, it's not about being better than the others, it's about being different. So winning does not necessarily mean being better than the others and outbeating, the competition. It means, it can mean, being the best of what we can. So referencing our ambition, not just to the others and being better than the others, but to ourselves might be interesting. So that's number one. Think of your business. Think of your whatever, think of your business, and do you have a clear one-sentence definition of your winning aspiration? Do you have it? Do your employees know it? Can they know, like this is the winning aspiration of this company? Do they know it? Okay. If not, there may be some work to do. The second question is where to play. Okay? So where to play means basically two things. It means defining, what clients are you serving, what clients are you aiming at, and for what needs, for what aspirations, for what problems. Okay? So what solutions are you bringing to what clients? And again, the point is to make a choice, which may be hard. You have, now when I look at Odoo, for example, it looks to me that they have a very compelling proposition to basically serve every businesses, small, big, large, etc., medium, large, on all business needs, whatever, okay? So it's one. If you look at Google, for example, or some other large companies, or Facebook, they focus, the client is basically every human being and for an increasing amount of needs. Think of Amazon. Okay? So they have a decision to go really broad and to go really wide in terms of where to play. They play basically everywhere. Why not, if you can do it? The key question is, on that market that you choose, are you going to be able to achieve your winning aspiration? Is there a connection between your winning aspiration and the market you choose? Earlier in the afternoon, we had a gentleman talking about a successful story of a product launch about an IP company. Okay? So it's a very tiny niche market in the legal industry. So you could have a decision to focus on a very specific type of clients, law firms, law departments, on a very specific need, IP protection. Okay? Or you could say, for example, we are very specific for certain type of clients, but we do everything for them. We become the Odoo of we are the Odoo of a very specific type of companies. Or similarly, you could also say we need, we have one type of specific need, but we find solutions to help everyone with that. So any client facing that problem, we can solve them. What I find interesting is the ability to define your market, so the type of clients and the type of needs and aspirations and problems that you are helping with in an innovative way. Okay? I used to be a lawyer, by the way. This is how I started my career. To give you an example, when I put that in front of lawyers, they would say, okay, the needs of our clients may be, for example, legal support in corporate law, legal support in labor, in employment law, legal support in commercial law. So they always view the needs of the client through the lens of legal specializations. But another way of looking at needs of clients might be to think, for example, okay, clients are fed up with, billing by the hour. You know that? Then you ask a lawyer, then you never know how much you'll pay at the end because they are charging hours, and therefore this billing system is very problematic for many clients. So therefore, you could differentiate, you could identify a segment of the market of clients who want to have a fixed fee instead of hourly rates. Okay? So you're not defining them, you're not defining their needs in terms of legal content of what you do, but in terms of the way the legal services are priced. So that's a new, an interesting, a different way of segmenting the market. And a lot of innovation in companies, it's not just about product, but it's about how are we going to segment the market in innovative ways. Okay? Think of your market, think of and now maybe probably you are segmenting them in terms of size of company, for example. Okay, how could we use other criteria for doing this? So now we have started with the winning aspiration. We've gone to where to play. You have defined a market where you want to play. The third one is, just one thing. In many companies you might have sort of a constellation of choices about where to play. Okay, so you may have different things at different time, whatever. Okay, so it can work as long as there's a consistent answer to this. The next question is then, you have defined your winning aspiration, you have defined your where to play. Now, how to win? How to achieve your winning aspiration? You get that one? Okay, so what is it that will make it that you will be able to achieve your winning aspiration within the market that you have chosen? Basically, there are two approaches, okay? So either you are a cost leader, yes, cost leader, or you are a differentiator. Imagine this is the market price, that is the horizontal line. This is the market price or something. Then if you're the cost leader, you do everything to push costs down. And therefore, you make a huge profit by selling at market price. Okay? So, but your entire mindset is focused on pushing prices down. Okay? Every decision you make, from the biggest to the smallest one, is all about reducing costs. And therefore, you make a lot of profit. Think Ryanair, for example. Now, you may have, on the opposite, on the other side, you have the differentiator. So in that case, how many of you use Apple computer, for example? Okay, so it's not the cheapest one, but you buy it because it offers, I see a gentleman saying no, okay? But somehow, if you bought it, it's because you see some additional value in it. And therefore, you are willing to pay an extra price, even though the market price for computers is much lower. So you have of course, you have your distinctive value. The worst position in this situation, again, is when there's no clear choice. And many companies are like that. Basically, they complain about decreasing prices and about the need to get with the market price and reduce their prices. So that's the situation in the middle. At the same time, they haven't made the choice to be a cost leader, and therefore they still love to have, you know, the nice offices and the assistants and everything and all those costs, because they like to live the big life. So without making a clear choice as to which model they will go. Or maybe they are not cutting, you know, they don't have a clear differentiation. And therefore, what's happening when the market gets a bit tough? You have the cost leader who decides to make a price war and reducing the price. Suddenly, you know, there's an offering at a much lower price. What happens? The cost leader still makes a nice profit that can be invested in marketing, in research and development, in innovation, so the company will keep growing and flourishing. The differentiator sees no difference because there's no sensitivity to price in their market, but for the company in the middle, it means end of the story, okay? So you see the importance here of making a clear choice as to what is your winning strategy. How are you going to win? Which side are you going to be? And being a little bit of both, as many companies do, is not a good deal. Okay? Oh, we try to be really good and really cheap. Yeah, okay. Think twice. Now, how to find your differentiation? You know, we need to find this way to be different. How can we be different? What is going to be our distinctive advantage to create more value? I believe, suggest it's at the center of these three questions, you know, of these 3 points. Think, what do we love doing? What do we love doing? What are we super good at doing? And what do clients value? Okay? Now imagine if one of them is missing, you have a problem. Remember, we talked about developers creating a nice product. Nobody wants them. Nobody is valuing them. Finished. You might be doing things that clients value, that you're good at, but you don't like. You have a problem as well. So really, a good question is keep asking yourself, what do we love doing? What are we good at doing? And what do clients value? And then this, at the center, you can find probably your key distinctive how to win. Fourth question, we're nearly there. Fourth question, you have defined your how to win, then we go into very concrete, practical stuff. What are the core activities within everything that you do in your company, in your organization? You do so many things, but what are the specific activities that need to be done distinctively well so as to create your how to win? Okay? If you have decided that your how to win is to be the cost leader, then for example, procurement, buying stuff, is absolutely a core activity because this is where you will be pushing your costs down. Okay? So what is your how to win? And based on that, so how do you do this? Listing all the stuff you do in your organization, all the processes, all the activities you have. Okay? And then find among them, ask yourself, considering that my how to win is this, what are the core activities? What are the activities that are really the most important to create this how to win? And you identify them. For example, those ones could be anything, okay? And then you focus your efforts on those ones. On the ones that are blue, you need to be distinctively better. You need to do to make a difference. On the other ones, you can be average. There are no priority. You can just do like anyone else. Doesn't matter. Okay? So in terms of deciding what is a priority and what is not, in everything you need to do, the key question is it a core activity to support my how to win? Okay? So for example, this is a very simple, but I invite you to do the same thing in your organization. This is a very simple model showing for a certain type of organization, in that case it will be consulting companies, the core activities. Okay, now all of these areas can be broken down into more specific activities, but it gives a broad idea. And then, based on this, you could say, okay, guys, what is your winning aspiration? What is your where to play? What is your how to win? Now, based on the above, what are the core activities? What are the things where you need to be distinctively great? Okay? So it's interesting to have, for your organization, a model like this that shows all these activities, that gives you a snapshot of all activities. And then we are already at the last questions, the fifth questions, which is, do you have the right systems? So, you know, going from the winning aspiration, big questions, okay, to where to play, to how to win, to core activities, and now, do we have the right systems that will support the core activities? So that will make sure that our core activities are performed in a reliable way. Okay? Again, we had interesting talk this morning in the course of the day about implementing, you know, about the Odoo approach, and one of the key things was that it's important sometimes to say no to your clients to make sure that what you will do with your clients meet their goals. Okay, even though they might be desiring something, as long as if it is not in line with their strategic priorities, it doesn't make sense to develop it. So same thing here. You could use that here of saying, you know, when we are developing systems in an organization, do we feel that these systems are supporting a core activity, and that this core activity is producing the how to win? So therefore, the systems that you are implementing are basically contributing to the strategic success of the company. That might be an interesting way of approaching your work with clients who ask you to implement a system and say, well, wait a minute, how does it match into your core activities, how to win and winning aspiration? Now, you know, I wasn't hired to make the advertisement for Odoo, but really that's basically the business of Odoo is there. It's creating all those systems for all and depending. So the key thing, that's very easy. These are the systems and you have them. So the key question is then, with the client, which of them correspond to a core activity? Okay. Now, the beauty of it, and we are nearly done, the beauty of this, is that, so when you have a strategy, when you have a straight, one-page answer to these questions, what is your winning aspiration? What is your where to play? What is your how to win? What are your core activities? And what systems do you have in place to support all the above? And when you can cascade down from the winning aspiration to your systems, that is great. This is strategic effectiveness. And similarly, I should be able to look at every system in an organization and see how it supports a core activity, and how that core activity supports and how to win, and how this how to win contributes into the market that has been chosen to building up the winning aspiration. So 5 simple questions, easy to remember, and that can make a tremendous impact on your business. Thank you. Okay. So it's 5:30, everyone is hungry for going back home, but you know, if there's anyone who wants to ask a question or have a chat, I'm happy to. But, yeah. Yes, okay. Again? Yes. Yeah, yes, it is based, I'll go back to, yes, there's this one here. It is based on this one. There's a book, Lefley and Martin, Playing to Win. Excellent book, Playing to Win. But the framework is this one, the 5 steps, that's it. Anything else? Okay. Yes. I should ask you the question because you probably know Odoo better than I do. I'm not member, I'm not a part of, I'm not employee of Odoo, so I don't know this from the inside. But what I heard this morning obviously, was that certainly the price was 8 times cheaper than the competition. So this is amazing. Now, maybe you're also better, but let's say you are much better than the competition. Then why are you selling at 8 times less? So if people choose you because you are better, because you are simpler, because it works better, and at the same time you are the cheapest, you are probably leaving a lot of money on the table. This is why I find interesting what Fabien was telling about, testing your pricing. And maybe you are increasing your price and it doesn't make any difference, your clients stay. So I see a lot of mistakes being done by companies who want to offer the best to the client at the lowest price, although the clients would be willing to pay more for it. Okay? So there's a lot of misalignment with the market on this one. So, but I haven't studied this clearly. So this is. Okay. So if you're 8 times cheaper and really good, there should be potential for price increase, I guess. Yeah, so they are in the middle, but maybe with the potential to, to be honest, again, I'm not saying where they are because I haven't studied it, but many companies are there indeed, yeah. But it's worth us, it's what's the point of being there? Okay. Apple, for example, Apple computers, they have, they have made a clear choice. Okay, they are increasing their price like crazy. People keep buying. Okay, so therefore, again, it's a question of defining your where to play. Where do you, are you targeting all customers? Are you all exclusively targeting affluent customers with a lot of money? What is your choice there? And again, okay, and if you say, no, we want to reach as many people as possible, then it probably doesn't make sense to be really high price. Okay, so you see how those questions keep bouncing back on each other. And this, to be honest, this is the beauty of the model, I think. But you see, that's interesting because you see, those are simple questions, but leading to complex conversations. Okay, say, hey, gosh, and what exactly are we doing? Have we answered those questions? Do we have a clear philosophy on those questions? And in many cases, not really. We're sort of doing things a little bit like this, like that, without a clear direction, without a clear, hard choice. That's the point. Okay. Okay, good. High time to relax, to have a nice evening. Thank you.